warmth of my seat here on cable television news can fully capture what it means to be homeless. While those of us who haven't experienced homelessness can't describe the experience, we can recognize the importance of quantifying it. And this Monday, New York City will try to do just that. The city's Homeless Outreach Population Estimate, or HOPE, plans to survey the city in 2 days using thousands of volunteers to try to count every homeless person in the city. HOPE has been conducting the citywide survey since 2005. For the first time, though, another city government group will be doing a different count that night. The New York Department of Youth and Community Development will be counting homeless, runaway, and unaccompanied youth. They are asking these young people to check in and be counted at various drop-in centers throughout the 5 boroughs in New York City between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Nationally, the Obama administration initiated late last year Youth Counts with an exclamation point, an interagency initiative to develop strategies for counting unaccompanied homeless youth up to 24 years old. 8 municipalities and all of Washington state are participating, including New York City. So counting homeless youth provides essential data which may help shock a nation into action and provide guidance for the resources available. For our part today, we're going to talk with some people who have their own unique insights. Joining me is Eboni Boykin, who was homeless as a teenager and is now a freshman at Columbia University. Derek Cobb, a dancer and model who was homeless for 5 years. Ralph DaCosta Nunez from the Institute for Children, Poverty, and Homelessness, and Bob Herbert, Distinguished Fellow at Demos. Also with us is Jimmy Ramirez, a formerly homeless teen who is now an advocate for California Homeless Youth Project. He joins us from Washington, D.C., where he's a sophomore at Georgetown University. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Jimmy, I'm going to start with you since you're joining us from D.C. I want to ask you about both your experience of being homeless, but specifically your experience working with homeless youth. What is your takeaway on efforts like the one coming up on Monday?
So I work for the California Homeless Youth Project in Sacramento, California. It's a policy initiative for policymakers to learn more about homeless youth, learn about the scale and scope of the problem. And so I've done a lot of blogging recently on the recent point in time count that homeless youth are going to be included in. I think it's very, very important because now we're going to get to put a number to these estimations that have been going on for far too long. So this number is going to be a good jumping off point for us to actually eliminate this problem and actually hold ourselves accountable.
Ralph, how do you think, I mean, you're right here in the city. What do you think of this effort on Monday?
I think it's a good effort, but I find that there are shortcomings. I mean, I think we undercount. We do this point in time, and then you read Huddle come out and say, this year they reported homelessness is going down. Well, it certainly isn't. If you're on the street, you see it. If you count the shelters, you see it. So it's a good effort, but we're missing a lot. This issue is much bigger than any count we're going to do on one evening.
And part of it is that the young people are perhaps the most difficult to count here because they're actually asking them to come in and come to drop-in centers. When you think about your own experience of being a young person in the context of homelessness, how would you have been counted? How would they have been able to find you, to count you?
Honestly, that's a really tough question to answer because a lot of young people, we all have a pride factor to it. We don't like to admit exactly what the situation is of what we're going through at that particular time. So with the youth, we spend most of our time trying to hide it and trying to
in the world
put on that act and put up that presence that there's nothing's wrong when in actuality something is wrong. And I think that's a huge part of the problem.
You know, the point that you're making right now, Eboni, I heard you make a similar point when you and I discussed your circumstances of having been homeless before you went to Columbia University. I want to listen for just a moment because you did tell us a bit about your own experiences, and I want to hear what you said and then ask you to respond to it a little bit.
We were pretty much homeless most of my childhood. We were usually sleeping on other people's floors or in different homeless shelters. There were many times I had to study and I was hungry. I would say food was even more so an issue when we weren't in the shelters anymore because at least there they feed you. And when I was older and I was able to ask my mom why this was happening, she'd always say, well, I didn't make the right decisions and I didn't stay in school. And if you do this, then things can be better for you. So I just kind of took that and ran with it. And that's what helped me stay focused.
So you're saying it helped me stay focused. I stayed on course, but the whole time you were telling that story, I was thinking, that's a huge just sort of effort of will.
Yes, absolutely it was. I mean, But staying focused is sort of all you can do because, I mean, what else could I could have just sat around, you know, there was nothing to do in the shelters. There were just beds and then there was the cafeteria. So I pretty much had no choice except to be focused and set a goal for myself. It was either that or pretty much just sit around and feel sorry for myself. And I don't think that my mom would have been happy with me had I done that, and I wouldn't have been happy with myself. So I'm happy with the decisions I made.
You know, I think people tend not to understand, one, how pervasive this problem is. I agree with you. I think that it's growing. It is certainly not diminishing. But also to hear Eboni talk about being hungry. So when I interview young people who have been homeless, that always comes up. So people think of homelessness, but just being without a place to live. They forget that you don't have any money. You know, very often people are going hungry. It's a chaotic way to live. And we really should be paying much more attention to it. I really congratulate you for staying on issues like this on this program.
Thank you. Jimmy, let me ask you a little bit about that. I mean, you know, Eboni is at Columbia University. You are there at Georgetown. So I think there might be sort of a kind of almost an effort to say, oh, well, look, if you just focus hard enough, you can still have these accomplishments. But what's the reality of the experience for young people coping with the issue of homelessness?
So I can speak from personal experience. What got me through, like, to where I am today is it was the community of people who invested in me and cared for me. So specifically, like, my teacher who took me in, there was a lot of factors of them coming together and making me feel almost adequate, because there was a lot of feelings of inadequacy when my homeless situation was taking place.
Derek, I want to ask you in part about this question of community, because one of the things we know is that LGBTQ youth are the most likely population of young people to end up homeless, in part because the community does the opposite of taking care of them. It often shuns and rejects.
Yes, it does, actually. It's very unfortunate, and for me, the circumstances were extremely, extremely tough, but once again, just finding the support system and finding, you know, mentors at Bailey, at, you know, my music producers and, you know, the photographers I began working with to really, really give me a sense of everything was going to be all right. And a lot of the times, I think that parents need to really get more involved and, you know, and figure out exactly what is happening with their kids when they come out, rather than pushing them away.
So Ralph, when I hear there's a little bit of a theme here of for kids who are making it on the other side of this, that there was someone, a teacher, a photographer, a parent who reached out, who helped to bring them back. Is that what the organizations are trying to do, to be that community?
That is the story, but it's difficult to do. These are success stories.
Yeah.
The other side of the curve is very different. You know, the typical homeless person in America today is a child. It's not an adult. It's an 11 or 12-year-old child. And the key issue for these children, and this is so important, is education. Not having a home destabilizes your family, it destabilizes your health, it destabilizes your education. Homeless people, families move at least 2 or 3 times a year. Each one of those is an educational setback. If we don't pay attention to this, if we don't realize that this isn't simply a housing issue, it is truly an education issue, it is a children's issue, and it's an issue that we are going to pay 10, 20 times more for if we don't address it now, if we don't pay attention to it.
Stay right there. I really like this point about educational disruption. We're going to ask about something pretty extraordinary that happened at the inauguration when President Obama said something on this question. I want my guests to weigh in on it.